Tamriel History, Part 3. Origin of the Mages Guild, Varangian Edition, by the Archmage Saloth. The idea of a collection of mages, sorcerers, and assorted mystics pooling their resources and talents for the purposes of research and public charity was a revolutionary concept in the early years of the Second Era. The only organization that closest in aim and structure to what we now know as the Mages Guild was the Psijic Order of the Isle of Artaeum. At the time, magic was something to be learned by individuals, or at most within intimate covens. Mages were, if not actually hermits, usually quite solitary. The Psijic Order served the rulers of Somerset Isle as counsellors and chose its members through a complex, ritualized method not understood by outsiders. Its purposes and goals likewise went unpublished, and detractors attributed the worst evils to the source of the Order's power. Actually, the religion of the Old Order could be described as ancestor worship, an increasingly unfashionable philosophy in the Second Era. When Vanus Galerian, a Psijic of Artaeum and student of the famed Aetius, began collecting magic users from around Somerset Isle, he attracted the amenicity of all. He was operating out of the urban centre of Firsthold, and there was a common and not entirely unfounded attitude that magical experiments should only be conducted in unpopulated areas. Even more shockingly, Galerian proposed to take magical items, potions, and even spells available to any member of the general public who could afford to pay. No longer was magic to be limited to either the aristocracy or the intelligentsia. Galerian was brought before Aetius and the king of Firsthold, Rilis the 12th, and made to state his intentions of the fraternity he was forming. The fact that Galerian's speech to Rilis and Aetius was not recorded for posterity is doubtless a tragedy, though it does afford an opportunity for historians to amuse one another with speculation about the lies and persuasions Galerian might have used to found the ubiquitous organization. The charter, at any rate, was approved. Almost immediately after the guild was formed, the question of security had to be addressed. The Isle of Artaeum did not require force of arms to shield it from invaders. When the Psijic Order does not wish someone to land on the isle and all its inhabitants simply become insubstantial, the new Mages Guild, by contrast, had to hire guards. Galerian soon discovered what Tamrielic nobility has known for thousands of years. Money alone does not buy loyalty. The Knightly Order of the Lamp was formed the following year. Like a tree from an acorn, the Mages Guild grew branches all over Somerset Isle, and then gradually the mainland of Tamriel. There are numerous records of superstitious or sensibly fearful rulers forbidding the guild in their domains, but their heirs or heirs' heirs eventually recognized the wisdom of allowing the guild free rein. The Mages Guild has become a powerful force in Tamriel, a dangerous foe if somewhat disinterested ally. There have been only a few rare instances of the Mages Guild actually becoming involved in local political struggles. On those occasions, the guild's participation has been the ultimate decider in the conflict. As begun by Vanus Galerian, the Mages Guild is an institution as presided over the Supreme Council of 6 Archmagisters. Each guild hall is run by a magister, assisted by a twofold council, the prerequisite and the Master Palentius, who is also the leader of the local chapter of the Order of the Lamp. One need not be a member of the Mages Guild to know that this carefully contrived hierarchy is often nothing more than a chimera. As Vanus Galerian himself said bitterly, leaving Tamriel to travel to the other lands, the guild has become nothing more than an intricate morass of political infighting. Mages Guild Report. The Order of the Black Worm. It is as we feared, Archmagister. The Order of the Black Worm is no mere Daedric cult, but a brotherhood of necromancers that seeks to rival, nay, supplant, our own Mages Guild. Even as the Mages Guild was founded by the ex-Psijic Vanus Galerian, so was the worm cult founded by his arch-rival and nemesis, ex-Psijic Manamako. Both were trained on the Isle of Artaeum, but when Galarian got Manamako expelled for his dabbling in the forbidden necromantic arts, the self-styled Worm King simply relocated to continental Tamriel and took up his heinous pursuit in earnest. He is known to have sought out hidden manuscripts describing how the dragon priests enthralled their Draugr, ancient Ayleid tablets regarding the summoning of the spirits of the dead, and the Crimson Book of Skulls, which Shalidor himself had thought destroyed. Manamako has bragged of consorting with Daedra lords, and may even have been bargaining with the father of vampires, Molag Bal himself. Manamako then set about spreading his blasphemous lore, enlisting unscrupulous mages, outcast witches, and vile witchmen into his necromantic network. He dubbed his new order the Cult of the Black Worm, in emulation, or perhaps mockery, of the monastic orders of the divine. In the most parts of Tamriel, raising the dead was quite properly considered an atrocity, so the worm cult at first operated entirely as an underground illicit organization. But Manamako, in addition to being a mighty necromancer, is a wise and wily diplomat, and many jurisdictions he's persuaded, bribed, or intimidated the authorities into turning a blind eye to the Order's activities. Worse, in Cyrodiil, the King of the Worms has even persuaded the ruling clans of the Imperial City to declare necromancy a legal magecraft, and the Order of the Black Worm has now taken place of the Mages Guild in the authorized magical advisors to the Imperial throne. A typical cell of the Order, known informally as a worm's nest, is led by a necromancer who bears the title Worm Anchorite. An Anchorite reports directly to Manamako, though their means of communication is as yet unknown. Beneath the Anchorite are the necromancer adepts, worm warriors, and lackeys called worm thralls. New cultists are attracted by promises of great power for those who serve loyally, and are all sworn to secrecy on pain of undeath. Regional plots are addressed in the secondary reports. An additional overheard rumor, unconfirmed at this time, is that the Order has opened negotiations with the Slodes of Thras. I'm seeking further information, and may know more by the next dark of the moons. Report, investigated by journeyman Quelitius, may Arche guide his soul to Aetherius, and posthumously compiled by evoker Brucille. The Second Akaviri Invasion. A Request for Funding by Ingemere Ravenquill, Historian Royale of the Bard's College Solitude. Though we Nords of Western Skyrim, your majesty, were fortunate to escape involvement in the recent Akaviri invasion of Tamriel, it is nevertheless important that we try to understand this strange affair, especially as it has led our estranged kingdom in Eastern Skyrim into a bizarre and ill-advised alliance with our ancient enemies, the treacherous Dark Elves of Morrowind. Though the events occurred only a dozen years ago, the facts of the incursion from Akavir are already becoming obscured for fog and legend and conjecture. What do we know for sure? 1. We know that there are multiple realms in Akavir, and that the raiders of the First Era, who later gave the Empire its potentates, were from Taeski, where the forces of the recent invasion were from Kamal. However, we know virtually nothing about either realm. 2. The leader of this second invasion was the king of Kamal, Adasum Dri Kamal. We know little about him or his reasons for invading Tamriel. Even our agents from the Eastern Kingdom, few captured Akavir, knew any Tamrielic, and most died under interrogation. One report stated that Dri Kamal was seeking someone or something called Ordained Receptacle, but this could easily be a bungled translation. 3. For reasons unknown, the Akaviri fleet sailed around the northern corner of Tamriel into the Sea of Ghosts, bypassing the Telvanni Peninsula, Vattenfell, and Solstein, before finally landing at the mouth of the White River northeast of Windhelm. 4. The Akaviri invasion was a complete surprise, and Windhelm was invested before Queen Majam could muster the hold in defense. After a brief surge, the invaders breached the southern gate, and the city was sacked and burned. Both Queen Majam and her daughter and heir, Princess Nunhald, were slain in the fierce fighting before the gates of the Palace of Kings. 5. The royal cadet, Prince Joran, escaped the sack of Windhelm and briefly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was calling himself King Joran, and was accompanied by a mighty warrior whom he claimed was Ruvhath, the Ash King, sent back from Sovngarde to help the Nords defeat the Akaviri. With this so-called Ruvhath at his side, Joran rallied the eastern Nords and fortified Riven. 6. When Dur Kamel moved his army south from Windhelm, he bypassed Riften. Once again his motivations are unclear, and marched into western Morrowind. There he was opposed by Dark Elf forces, who staged a fighting retreat through the Ashlands under the command of El-Melexia and her leading general, Tanval of House Indril. 7. Dir Kamel pursued the Dunmeri army into eastern Stonefalls, where the elves halted their retreat by occupying prepared defenses. The Akaviri advance slowed and stopped, and suddenly the Nord army under Joran and Wulhath appeared at their rear. This cannot be by chance. Incredibly, we must concede that, despite the age-old anonymity between Nord and Elf, there was a collusion between Joran and El-Melexia, and the envelopment of the Akaviri at Stonefalls was according to a plan. 8. The Akaviri, however, were not so easily defeated. With their backs to the inner sea, they fought a desperate defense, attempting to hold out until their ships could come from the White River estuary to take them from the shore. Despite the repeated attempts, the combined Dunmer-Nord army failed to break their lines. The Akaviri fleet was actually visible on the northern horizon when another incredible event occurred. At the last moment, the Nords and Dark Elves were reinforced by 2 legions of Argonians who had marched into the battle from the south. With the infusion of the reptilian shellbacks, the Tamrielics finally broke the Akaviri line, and with nowhere to escape to, the invaders were slaughtered to the last soldier. As your Majesty no doubt realizes, this account raises far more questions than answers. What we know about this affair is dwarfed by what we don't know. Thus my request to fund a royal committee of inquiry to look into the grave implications of this matter. I, of course, will volunteer to lead this committee, provided the burden of such a task can be offset by an appropriate stipend. I hope you've been enjoying these lore readings, and if you have, please do consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching.